Greetings and welcome to another impressions video here at Words About Games, and today we're going to be looking at Trials of Mana. Trials of Mana is a remake of the classic JRPG Seiken Densetsu 3, originally released on the Super Famicom in 1999. Nope. Trials of Mana is a remake of the classic JRPG Seiken Densetsu 3, originally released on the Super Famicom in 1995 in Japan only, rebuilt in 2020 in full 3D. The game tells the interweaving story of 6 heroes on their own personal quests to claim the Sword of Mana to save their world from an encroaching catastrophe, as dark forces conspire to plunge the world into war and reawaken the Benevodons, ancient creatures that once almost destroyed everything. I never played the original Seiken Densetsu 3, or the re-released version in last year's Collection of Mana, which marked the first time the 1995 RPG had been released in the West. However, I don't need to have experienced this game's predecessor to know that it's an incredibly faithful adaptation of the 25-year-old game. For better or worse, Trials of Mana is most definitely a throwback to a different era of JRPGs. When I previewed the game after playing its demo earlier this year, I noted that it was blindingly obvious that though some elements of the game had been updated for modern audiences, the story and writing definitely felt like they were from the 90s. That's understandable. Seiken Densetsu 3 is a beloved game and a cult classic, and it's generally unwise to tinker too much with something that's loved by a lot of people, lest it loses its soul in the process. But while this does make Trials of Mana incredibly faithful to the story and characters of the original game, it also doesn't really do the remake's narrative or characters any favours. The original game was created at a time when many of its tropes probably felt a whole lot fresher than they do here. While your party composition can certainly affect how enjoyable the story is, I got the definite sense after a few short hours with it that Trials of Mana wasn't going to be telling a particularly groundbreaking story, at least not after 25 years of playing JRPGs. The narrative feels formulaic, and its dialogue feels incredibly stilted. Characters back and forth is long-winded and at times quite painful, and their stories are fairly uninspired. This didn't turn out to bother me a great deal, just in case you think I'm going to spend this entire video crapping all over the game. I am actually enjoying it quite a bit for reasons I'll get into in a moment, but it's really hard to fight the temptation to just skip the dialogue and cutscenes. One tip, however, do not, under any circumstances, choose Charlotte to be in your party. There are 6 main characters in Trials of Mana, and the game asks you to choose a main character and 2 support characters. There'll be a party for the entire game. It's a really neat system that lets you check out a quick description of a character's backstory and abilities and build a squad, which affects how the story unfolds and unlocks some unique interactions between party members whose backstories may affect one another. It might even seem like a good idea to have Charlotte in your party. She's primarily a healer after all, and it's always good to have a healer around. I made this very mistake when playing the demo. The 2 and a bit hours I played with Charlotte in my party was way more than I could stand. The character has a speech impediment where she pronounces all her R's as W's, and it is literally one of the most annoying things I've ever come across in a video game. The quality of voice acting ranges from pretty good to really bad, but Charlotte's dialogue and the way her voice acting has been directed is on another level of atrocious. It was so bad I didn't even carry my demo save over to the main game, opting to replay the first few hours just so she wouldn't be in my party for the next 30 to 40. You can do without a healer. Other characters can level up in support magic, and healing items are plentiful. Now, with that warning out of the way, I want to dive into what makes this a really solid JRPG. It's gameplay. Trials of Mana is an action RPG. You fight battles in real time against a variety of really cute enemies with really ridiculous names. So cute and ridiculous that it makes it hard not to feel pangs of regret when you obliterate them out of existence. You've got a light attack, heavy attack, dodge roll, and a smattering of special abilities, which differ depending on the character you're controlling, because you're also able to swap between any of the 3 party members at will. It's simple, but really effective, and it's easy to slip into a rhythm thanks to how fast-paced yet meticulous the fights are. Success in combat relies on dodging enemy attacks and chaining together combos using your standard attacks and special moves. Fights against normal enemies are brisk, but it's in its boss fights where Trials of Mana's combat system really stands out. These battles are creative and incredibly involved, and it's really satisfying working out when to attack and dodge. However, boss battles do highlight how exceptionally dumb your companion AI is. When you're controlling one character, your fellow party members act independently. You can set custom strategies for each character, which regulates how aggressive they are, which enemies they target, how often they use their own special abilities, and how much they'll dip into your reserve of healing items. Unfortunately, there's no option to stop them from charging headfirst into whatever attacks an enemy is unleashing. It's not too big a problem during regular fights, but during boss encounters you'll be spending just as much time healing and reviving your idiotic party members as actually fighting. While combat is where you'll be spending the majority of your time, you'll also be exploring a weird and goofy world. Trials of Mana has a really fascinating world, and it's quite satisfying scouring every corner of it for hidden treasure chests and items, but the game's heavy focus on backtracking can become aggravating after a while. You'll routinely be running backwards and forwards between the same places. Multiple times I was sent to one location, then had to backtrack to my original starting location, then sent back to where I went, then tasked with heading back to the starting location again. There's a lot of obvious creativity gone into designing the world, and it's annoying that you're forced to run through the same areas over and over again. Trials of Mana is a proficient remake. Even without playing the original game, I can tell it's a very faithful recreation, which is a double-edged sword. It's got solidly satisfying combat that makes the game one I want to keep playing, just to see what the next cool boss fight demands of me. But there are problems. The narrative feels uninspired, the dialogue and voice acting can be grating, your party AI routinely gets themselves killed if you're not babysitting them, and the sheer amount of backtracking can get on your nerves. But this is still a good game, and a worthwhile experience that I want to see through to the end. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, consider sticking around here at Words About Games. Our content includes review impressions of games big and small, a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing the happenings in and around the games industry, weekly opinion videos, reactions, debate-driven top 5 and top 10 lists, a regular Hall of Fame series where we discuss our favourite games, and indie game spotlights. We also stream every Friday and Saturday at twitch.tv/wordsaboutgames. Most importantly, have a brilliant day.